Hello and welcome to Procrastination Station. Procrastination as in procrastinating and that other thing that we all do. If you can put it together, then you're my people, and if you can't, perhaps click that next button. No shade. I'm your host, Hannah, and I'm here to talk about self-sabotage in a way that invites all parts of us to come along for the journey. I'm here to lay out the setbacks and superpowers of self-sabotage in order to manage our limitations. Throughout the show, we'll discuss designing a life that works in your favor through sustainable creative practices. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed today's topic. Okay, so I was so excited to talk to today's guest that I completely neglected to do a proper introduction. With today's episode, we are discussing generational cycles. However, I want to discuss these cycles in a way that's respectful to my loving, amazing parents and my upbringing. Although I've experienced plenty of turbulence in my life between my early years and teens, I lead this life with gratitude rather than blame. I'm grateful for the depth of emotion I've cultivated throughout my life, and I'm grateful for my awareness of the cycles I get to break and evolve. I've met too many people throughout my life that feel trapped in their habits with a belief system that in order to break their cycles, they have to completely 180 their behaviors and in turn dishonor their family. This feeling keeps them trapped to repeat the same cycles or to flip their life around to do everything the exact opposite of how they were raised to do it. And I believe this concept is more in the gray area. My goal with this topic is to offer the world that you can evolve the cycles you were born into and simultaneously honor your truth and your lineage. I'm so grateful to have Shantae here with me to discuss this. She has a cool head and a warm heart, and she's so full of wisdom. I'm very pleased to present this topic to you with the subtopics of gentle parenting, seasons of life, and breaking cycles with gratitude. Thank you for listening, and let me know what you think. Do you want to take a moment to introduce your business and what you're going to be selling at this conference, all the things?
Absolutely. My name is Shantae Cunningham, and I am with Agape. Agape is an intentional wellness Christian brand that combines Christian faith and intentional wellness. It was started in November of 2022, and we're really just helping people on their way to faith, but ones that are also in faith, but being able to combine intentional wellness practices that work for yourself in your daily life. And through that, we sell our wall art. So it's scripture-based typography wall art that you're able to look at and be inspired by and encouraged by. But we also sell our multi-purpose body oil that has many, many uses. So I use it as like a massage oil, a cuticle oil, hand oil, body oil, dry face oil if you are doing like face massages through gua sha. I also use it on my son. There's so many uses. You can also use it as an anointing oil, but it smells like Valentine's Day cinnamon heart. So there we go again on the topic of love. But yeah, so that is me and that is Agape. And I love finding intentional ways of nurturing your four dimensions of wellness, so physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional, and just doing that in a way that works for you because of course everyone is different.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that so much. That's amazing. Now, for the audience as well, do you want to tell a little bit more about the business side of things? So you also have two ventures, right?
Yes. So I do have two ventures. So one is Agape, and then also I have an accounting firm. So it's an accounting, bookkeeping, payroll, financial advisory, business coaching business called Cobella Financial. I find that both businesses sort of bridge on wellness, whereas Agape is the four dimensions of wellness and Cobella Financial is more so like financial wellness. So I really like working with passionate business owners that really love what they do, but also see themselves within their business and don't want their business only be running for like a year or two. They really have like a long-term vision for their business, but also they may not have came from, I guess, like a silver spoon background. So they didn't start out with like $10,000 in cash to start out their business. They really were hustling with their business as a side hustle. And then it just so happened that it grew to become full time based on their passion. So with Cabela Financial, I find that I'm doing a lot of coaching to help business owners feel comfortable with money, feel comfortable with talking about money, seeing money, talking about taxes, and then being able to project growth for their business and themselves that isn't hindered by, I guess, like past traumas or their past behaviors with money. Like me personally, I always went by the mantra of no struggle, no progress. And then I sort of had to like take that idea out of my mind that I don't necessarily have to struggle every time to progress in life. And yeah, that worked. That's been working for me. So yeah.
I love this so much. So, just to give some background to the audience, Shantae and I work together on a community project selling products with, you know, the community. And I worked with her a few times, and I knew that when we were working together, we had a great vibe. The vibes were there. The vibes are important, and we had a really nice back and forth. We got some really interesting conversations throughout the time we worked together. I did not know any of that about you. So, first of all, thank you for sharing all of that. That's so amazing. And secondly, I just want to say I really love how this just really transitions into our actual topic for today's episode, which is generational cycles. Now, I love the topic of generational cycles. I've been working on my own generational cycles, my own cycles in general, and I've always wanted to do a topic on this, but I was a little bit scared to do it just by myself. So I'm so happy to have Shantae here with me to be able to bounce ideas off of and just talk about this thing that obviously all of us experience, but it's a little bit, I don't know if the word is taboo. It's a little bit funny to talk about. I feel like, at least for me, some of the worry is generational cycles are prevalent for everybody, but also I have a mom and a dad who love me and raised me well and did their best and always provided everything I needed and wanted, and they did great. However, a few things, I don't want to ever make them feel like I'm disrespecting them or ungrateful or anything like that. Also, regardless if somebody does their best, they always have the shadow self and the light self. And then also for myself, I have also put my entire life's experience through my own lens to be able to pick up qualities and traits in a completely unique way to me, because we are all individuals. So I just kind of wanted to do my best to put that into words, because it's something that I just want to make sure that, you know, we're respecting our family and everything like that. Right. And I also know that you say you came from a Christian background and you're still a practicing woman of faith, and I love that so much. I grew up Christian. Nowadays, I don't practice the organized side of religion, but I still have a connection with God, and I still have a connection with my upbringing, and a very high respect for my upbringing. So I also find that this topic can really work into that category as well, growing up in the church and having values and ideas put onto you, that, you know, you can still be a qualified Christian and not necessarily believe in every single thing that has been passed on through the church, right? So anyway, all of the preface over with. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, listeners, and I'm really excited for this topic.
I'm so grateful. And it is a taboo topic, I think, because it does require everyone to just get a little bit more vulnerable. And I'm really glad that that's how our friendship started, where we were just like candidly vulnerable. And it was like, that's just me.
Yeah, I love that too. And that's just me too. And it's like, you know, what's funny is you can find people where you have the ability right off the bat to have these vulnerable conversations, and it just feels right. And then there's other people where it doesn't feel like it can go that way, and that's okay too. But I just found, speaking to you, that I did feel that click, and that's super exciting. To get us into our first topic within this huge topic is gentle parenting. So Shantae mentioned she has a kid. Please remind me his name.
Yes, so I have a son. His name is Azrael. He is 2 years old, turning 3 in October, but I always say that he's 2 going on 7, because he's just super independent, and his personality, just every day he's surprising me. And I'm like, where did you learn this? But of course, he picks up things every day that I'm doing, his dad's doing, family members at school. So, I mean, that's just growing through life.
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't stop being surprising though. So in terms of gentle parenting, what does that look like exactly?
So for everyone, I feel like it looks a little bit different. And this could also be just based on how they were raised. But overall, gentle parenting is really just being gentle. I call it being gentle to almost like my inner child, but that child is an extension of me now because he's in a physical form. So really helping him hone in on his own feelings. If he makes a mistake, just let him know, like, you know, we all make mistakes, and sort of coaching him through everything that's going on, coaching him through his feelings, maybe not like blowing up throughout what I consider the smallest things, and especially what he considered the smallest things, because again, I have to remember he's 2 years old. He's still finding his words for things. He's still experiencing things for the first time, where I've seen, like, let's say we're on a road trip and we're going to Alberta, like I've seen the mountains like a few times. Like they're beautiful, but it's like, oh my gosh, wow, look. And I'm like, okay, all right. So it's just really understanding their feelings, being gentle as they're going through their experiences, both good and bad, and not maybe like holding it over their head at whatever age they are. Because I don't think gentle parenting stops. I think it just has like a transition period.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it's finding a way to just be more gentle in general necessarily than just to parent your own child. I love what you said about how it's like parenting your own inner child, but now it's like a physical extension of you.
Mm-hmm.
I love that so much. This is a question. I'm not a parent, so I just got to get that out of the way. But this is a question I've always had. Hearing the term gentle parenting, what is the difference between gentle parenting and submissive parenting? Because we all know kids like to push buttons, they're
Yeah.
good at it. And how can we still put our foot down as a parent, as the person who's in charge and the leader of the situation? How can you still maintain that level of respect to the parent while remaining gentle?
I almost think it's like a fine line, but in that it's one, maintaining your authority as a parent, and still being stern in the delivery of your gentle parenting. So I wouldn't say that I was raised in a gentle parenting background. So I wasn't raised by my mom. Me and my mom have a wonderful relationship now, and we always have as I was growing up, but I was raised by my grandparents. So you can imagine being raised by first generation Jamaican grandparents, where I mean, maybe the first instance of every problem is maybe let's yell about it or let's argue about it, or it was just a little bit more of a reactive environment. But now it's more so of I'm reacting to what you did, but you don't see that I have like a huge emotion, like, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world. You did something so bad. Whereas, let's say when I was younger, if I maybe like dropped a jar of pickles on the ground, it's like, oh my goodness, there's glass everywhere. Why did you do this? And sometimes it was generally a mistake. Sometimes I was just playing around. Again, kids push buttons. But now it's more so helping him understand the consequences of these things. Like you just dropped a jar of pickles. You're laughing. It's super funny. Now that all the pickles are swimming all over the floor, but one, there's glass everywhere and you can cut yourself and you'll be bleeding and now you're going to cry. And then also there's something for us to clean up. So I turn that into a teaching moment, because I find that once I turn it into a teaching moment and then sort of walking him through exactly what's happening, he's more receptive to the information that I'm doing. He's more respectful to what I'm saying. And then now it's almost like, let me help. Let me help clean up. And I'm like, okay, so let
Yeah.
me move all the glass out of the way. And then I actually just do the entire cleanup. And then I'll give him like a paper towel. He'll like wipe the floor. And I'm like, thank you so much for helping. But it's also the reassurance at the end of it, letting them know that even though you made a mistake, like this isn't going to be the end of the world. I'm not mad at you. And then in some instances, you are mad and you're also conveying your emotions that you're mad, or this is making me frustrated because you haven't been listening throughout the day. So everything is a coaching moment. Everything is a teachable moment. And that is something that I feel that transitions throughout life. So we're really just giving kids the resources they need to take into their life, because as much as I'd love to be a helicopter parent and make sure that nothing bad happens to Azrael ever, and that any problem that he has, I'm just right there to clean up the mess or make sure that I'm bailing him out, that's not going to be the case, because as much as my parents wanted to do that for me, they're not there for every single moment. So it's really using some of the tools that I've learned to help walk me through those moments, but also knowing that I'm going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You have to also gentle parent yourself as well, right? Because something that I think about with this whole concept, because we didn't have the word gentle parenting like 20 years ago. This was not a concept that we had growing up. And sometimes you were blessed with a gentle parent and they were just naturally that demeanor, but other times you weren't, and that's okay. And it's a different, like, we can't be hard on ourselves for not knowing certain things. It's a different generation that we grew up in. And something that I like to consider, especially people who have grown up in a turbulent home or somewhere where there weren't a lot of huggy feely warm feelings, that these are things that you also are learning and experiencing for the very first time. Just as your child is like, oh, wow, like at the mountains, you're going to be doing that for these huggy feely sort of feelings that you're going through with your own children, because your inner child is relearning these things that it should have learned a long time ago. And I think that there's so much to be said about this journey that people are undertaking to be there for their children the way that they wish that they had someone there for them. I think that it's just very, very magical. It's just a blessing to the world to be able to raise children in a way that's supportive and teaching and stern when it needs to be and kind when it needs to be, because you can still say, that hurt my feelings. I won't hold this against you forever, but right now my feelings are hurt.
Yeah.
We'll figure this out, but I'm sad.
I need a moment.
I need a moment. And I'll tell you, most kids, if they see their mom cry, especially at their own hand,
oh yeah,
they feel real bad. They know right away. They're like, I made mom cry, and that sucks.
Yeah.
So there's ways to still put your foot down and assert your authority. And of course, it's not always going to work exactly how you want it to. Finding that compassion for both the little one who literally does not have pathways in their brain to be able to express or feel things, so they can't regulate. They have not developed the regulation yet. And that's okay. They're supposed to, you know, have tantrums, and they're supposed to push your buttons. That's what kids are.
And it's not like asserting authority in like the way of Matilda. I'm not sure if you saw that scene in Matilda. That was my favorite movie growing up, where I'm like, I'm big, you're small. So it's not like that. It's more so like a respectable, like, I'm your mom. And even like with, I think there was like an episode of the Kardashians where Kim was hiding in the bathroom. Like sometimes I'm like, you know, I just need a moment. I'm gonna be in the bathroom. And then even then he's like, mom, come out, mom. And I'm like, okay, you come in. This is a silent moment.
This is the silent room. And when you come in, we enter the quiet space.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we can add to the topic of gentle parenting?
There was, I guess there's one other thing. And this is like my message to parents, soon to be parents. There's this saying that I was saying to myself when I first got pregnant, and it was like, I don't want to give my child a future that he's going to need therapy from. And it really almost hit me as soon as my kid turned 2, as he was having a lot more tantrums, as I was like learning things and realizing like I'm gonna need to like look up an article on this or just like ask another parent in conversation at the park or something. But like, you're always going to make mistakes as a parent. We can definitely strive for perfection, but you're not going to be perfect in every single way. And sometimes, again, making those mistakes as an adult helps you understand your child more. Even now, as I'm getting older, I'm also still learning more about my mom and learning more about my parents. And sometimes I just ask them like random questions. I'm like, what's your most favorite memory of us? And she's like, why are you asking me these things? I'm like, I want us to connect.
I need to know, right? And love that so much. What you mentioned about not necessarily needing to be perfect, even if you want to strive for perfect. I feel like any parent wants to give their kid the absolute world. That includes the parents that are bad parents. They want to give their kids the world too. You kind of have this image of yourself, like this perfect version of yourself, where it's like, that's how I would do it in a perfect world. And then most of the time, and this happens in life in general beyond just parenting, if you're doing anything of value, anything that matters, you're going to have the perfect vision in your mind. And then you're going to have the reality of, you're probably 80% there. You know, you can try and try and try, but realistically, you might not ever get to that perfect person that you see in your mind, because it's not really attainable. And nobody is perfect. Even the ones who have gone through a perfect upbringing as a kid, it still has, you know, the downsides. Everybody goes through ups and downs.
Yeah.
And I love what you say about like allowing your child to experience those ups and downs with you allows you to get to know them better. It also allows them to get to know you better. And it's okay to just be a human and not a super mom.
We are not AI moms, AI children.
No, exactly. We're human beings, and that comes with instincts, and that comes with mistakes and snap judgments, and it comes with a whole rainbow of emotions and experiences as people. And, you know, to even just want to give your kid a life that they don't have to seek therapy from. I think that's even just admirable in itself. And they recognize that and they realize that when they're older, even if something happens beyond your control, knock on wood, it never does, they still recognize mom was always there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's really beautiful.
Yeah. So simple. Just show up, be present,
Just be
do your
present.
best.
I feel like that's the main thing is presence, because like we have so many things to talk about in regards to technology and iPad kids and iPad moms and people who work all the time and they just can't necessarily be there all of the time. Like the only thing that a kid wants is for you to be present. That is so unattainable for some. Like, of course you have to go to work, of course you have to answer that email, and trying to find ways to balance when you are present, you're 100% present. And when you're not present, you give it your all to your other hobbies and experiences, because becoming a parent doesn't mean your entire life stops outside of being a parent.
That is true.
So this moves us pretty easily into our next topic of seasons of life.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah. So now to get into the generational cycles, the thick of it, because for me, I notice a lot of my cycles happen in seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do we allow the seasons to ebb and flow from our lives without attachment to keeping things the way that they are right now? I feel like that's a big one with a little 2-year-old, and because he's going through seasons like this because
Mm-hmm.
he's so little.
And then I'm going through seasons because I'm here in my 30s, just going through life and then trying to sort of balance it all as an entrepreneur and then free time. So, how do we allow it to ebb and flow? One, prayer.
Yeah.
And then two is really just understanding and this goes into generational cycles, like your own attachment style. So, do you anxiously attach to things? Are you avoidant to attaching to things where I'm just not going to consider it? I'm just going to go through it like it's just going past me? I really think, again, the word intentionality comes into play. Learning from different seasons, identifying the season you're in, whether it's like with a keyword or with an object or with whatever it is, to understand like this is my like resting season. So in my resting season, previous to that, I was just like working 24 hours a day. Just always felt like I had to go from one opportunity to the next. Had to just keep going on, go, go, go. I love to write in my notebook. I love to journal. What went well? What did not go well? What was my biggest hurdle? What did I learn? Who did I meet? What did they teach me? And just really sitting with that, because there's this saying like people come into your life for a season, a reason, and a lesson. So it's identifying which one that is, whether that's people, things, circumstances. Why did it have to happen? And sometimes it's really just maintaining my optimism to realize that I went through that. And that means like I have the biggest breakthrough coming in like the next season. So I definitely need to prepare. And that doesn't mean that I'm like finding my next big distraction, but it's also just really taking in life as it's happening. Like, as I say, stop and smell the roses, just really take in and enjoy the things that are happening around you. Whether you're just going for a walk and you're just enjoying the cars zooming by, really taking that time for self. I love a reflection moment or just practice daily gratitude. So that just goes again into like wellness practices that I like for myself. Identify what your attachment style is. Gratitude, prayer, and stop and smell the roses. I mean, it's the one life we have to live, and we're never going to experience today again.
That was amazing. I think that for you, seasons tend to ebb and flow when you have faith that you're being looked after, your God is above you, and that if something was positive that is meant for you, it'll come back, and that your seasons, they ebb and flow because they're meant to.
They're meant to.
With the rest season and with the go, go, go season. I like to look at them as actual seasons. Like there's winter where you're resting and you're hibernating and you're fattening up. You're fattening up so that you can have the energy to push you through to the next season. And then there's spring where you're planting seeds and you're churning the soil and you're getting those ideas going. And then there's summer where you're like grooming the plants, you're pulling the weeds, you're shooing away the bugs, you're like making everything just like ready for that harvest. And then you have your harvest where you're like picking your tomatoes, eating your apples, and like you're starting to move slowly into that slow down state of
Mhm.
winter. And then it starts again. And you can have all four of those seasons in one day. You can
One-
have them like every other week. It doesn't have to follow spring, summer, fall, winter. It can be hard. It can be so hard because sometimes I'm in my summer and I'm like, I just freaking want to rest.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'm in my winter and I'm like, so guilty for it. I'm in my winter and I physically can't push myself to do more than what I'm capable of. Nobody likes burnout. And like, so would you say that when you are entering your winters, when you like to travel so that you can like relax on the beach?
I would say that I missed my resting season for many seasons, and I will say many years, and I'll like move it to about like 3 years, because since COVID, again, I was pregnant during COVID, and then everything was like shutting down. So I'm like, I need to pivot my business, and then I was like in go mode, and then I had a baby, so I was in mom mode, and then now I have to work because my business is scaling, and then I'm like, hey, let me start a new business. So then I started a new one, and I was like, I continued that cycle again. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm reaching a point where I'm not giving myself 100%. Now that it's slowing down, again, tax season is ending. And that's when the slowdown happens for me. So now that tax season is ending, like, let me just rest. And then that rest became like, I've been in sort of like the same confinements of I guess my apartment, or the same confinements of Ontario and Canada for so long. Of course, I've done like staycations, but again, I've still had my laptop, and it still felt very Toronto-esque. So I'm like, let me just move into a new dimension. Let me move into a new country. Let's test something else out. So I went to Miami, and then I went to Detroit, and then I came back, and I was like, I'm still in the rest mode right now. So then I took my son to Mexico, because of course, as much as I want to see the world, I want him to be able to experience that too. Yeah, now I'm sort of getting back into, not the, I don't want to call it the hamster wheel, but now that I had that time to recharge, reset, look at everything that happened throughout the years, everything that happened throughout this year, do a reflection moment, journal my pages all the way to the end of my journal, do my daily gratitude every day. Then I'm like, you know what? I know what I want to do now. I know how I can show up for myself and give myself 100%, where now I'm pouring into myself so that I can definitely continue pouring into others. Because at that specific point in time, and this is pre-July, I was pouring from an empty cup, and I was like, depleting the cup, and I was like, let me just take some water from here, and then I'll pour into somebody else. But I wasn't pouring into myself, and I felt that it didn't show for others, but it definitely showed for myself. Like, I could
Yeah.
see it, and I could see that based on, I have plants in my house, and anytime my plants are dying, I'm like, something is not right in my life.
I love that. I love that. I have so many plants too, and I want to start communicating with them that way. I love
Yeah.
that so much. I have some questions from everything that you've shared so far. I'm
Mhm.
curious. So, first of all, did you call it the pillars of wellness?
The 4 dimensions of wellness, but
The
we can call them
dimension.
pillars. I like pillars.
I like dimensions,
Yeah.
actually. I love
Oh.
that. What does that mean to you?
So the different dimensions of wellness is basically how I, as myself, am able to function at my full capacity. So those are all the dimensions of wellness that we need to nurture to be our best selves. So your emotional wellness, like, how are you able to, one, hone in on your feelings? Are you emotionally available? Are you able to deliver your feelings in a way to somebody else that maybe they won't even be able to comprehend it, but are you able to deliver your feelings in a healthy manner? Are you able to, in terms of spirituality, are you connected with God? Are you connected with a higher being? Are you in Jesus talking every day? Are you praying every day? Is there some type of spiritual wellness, whether you're meditating? Some people do gratitude. Are you listening to a sermon online? Whatever it is, it's nurturing your spirituality, because we are not in control of everything. We cannot control everything as much as we want to. I find that you even like drive yourself to like insanity or burnout trying to control all the intricate parts of your life, especially like if you're in Toronto and like you're trying to control something that's happening in like Hamilton. Like, that's just, you're not in control of that. So just, one, giving up that control and submitting to that and allowing what is going to happen, but knowing that you're showing up to your full capacity with positive intentions. And then mental, which I feel like goes in tune with spirituality, because like, how is your mental health? How's your mind? They always say, and this is in the Bible, that the mind is the devil's playground. And also, whatever you think, so it is. So, are you feeding yourself positive thoughts on a daily basis? And that goes with parenting as well. So, this is not only something I tell my son, but something I tell my friends, something I tell my family members, where they're like, "Oh, I'm so stupid, I'm so dumb," and I'm like, "Don't say that about yourself."
Yeah, I do
Because
that too.
one, why are you calling yourself stupid? You're not stupid. You're supposed to be telling yourself you're smart or you're intelligent, or like, I have all the resources that I need to succeed in life or to do exactly what I need to do, because that registers in your mind as you're saying it as something that's true. And that's another generational cycle that you continuously
Hmm.
go through, because it's like, I remember that I told myself, wherever it stemmed from, whoever told it to you, that you're dumb or you're not as smart, and then it's something that sort of waters down the next thing that you're able to do, or
Yeah,
discourages you from doing things to your full potential because you've talked to yourself in such a negative manner. And then that also introduces other people to talk to you like that. And nobody's going
yeah.
to tell me that I'm stupid.
No, of course, of course. And it can also even not necessarily be somebody saying you're stupid as a child, but it could even be watching your mom or your grandma or whoever walk around life being
Mhm.
like, they make a mistake, like, oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
stupid. And that's part of the generational inheritance as well, where
Mhm.
like it's not necessarily intentional, but the way that we speak to ourselves is so important because
It
kids
is.
are sponges.
They
Like, I
are.
remember watching older women in my life as a kid talk about their bodies in a way where they'd say, "Oh, I don't like my stomach. I don't like my arms. I wish, I wish, I
Mhm.
wish." A little like marshmallowy kid, and like you don't know any hatred towards your body, but then all of
Mhm.
a sudden you see women in your life talking badly about themselves, and then you think it's okay for you to do it. And it's hard enough being a teenager as it is, let alone adding all of the societal pressures of being a female teenager. You know, I remember going through that in therapy of undoing all of the hatred that I had towards my body as a kid. And like,
Mhm.
it's nobody's fault, but we just need to be nicer to ourselves so that we can be nicer to others as well.
Yeah. And people pick up on that. So, yeah, that's huge.
I think so too. I think so too.
And then there was one last one, which was physical. So that's just like moving your body, whether you're
Yeah.
going for a walk, whether you're like, you have your Apple Watch on and you're like walking around your house, getting your steps up, whatever it is, it's just movement of the body is good for the mind. And I try to do that, especially as a work from home entrepreneur. I need to see outside sometimes because I'm like, yeah, I just do this one thing. I'll just do this one thing. And then it's like 5 o'clock and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do one more thing, and then now it's 9 p.m. and I haven't seen outside. So I
Yeah.
made like a practice to at least take one daily walk. I have an exercise bike that I purchased during COVID as a spontaneous purchase, and I'll like take it on my balcony, and just like ride like I'm cycling somewhere. But I'm still outside. I'm still getting fresh air. I'm moving my body, but all of those things like contribute to your overall wellness and how you feel about yourself, and again how you deliver messages to people, how you speak to people, how friendly you are. Do you have a smile on your face today? Like,
It sounds like it's like a mind, body, heart, and soul check
mhm,
in, where it's like taking an inventory of these four pillars or dimensions of who
mhm,
you are as a person. Where it's like, what's my relationship with my God? What's my relationship to my heart, to my thoughts, and to my body?
yeah,
And I think that's super duper great. I'll probably integrate that into my little wellness regime as well. I have lots of tools with like taking an inventory of your life. I have one, it's called the Wheel of Life, where it goes like basically through the things that you've mentioned, all four of those. And then it's also has like financial wellness and
oh
like your
yeah,
relationships, and but it goes too deep because there's too many options. So I like that yours
yes.
is like mind, body, soul, spirit. And
There's so many different like arms that go out with all of those topics.
yeah,
So all of those things like they flow into it, like relationships and family and self care. That's why I use Agape multi-purpose oil. Shameless plug.
Go check that out. It's
Yeah,
great.
there's just so many things, and again, this is where it goes into like we're not in control of everything. I'd love to do a self-care day every single day for an hour, but I can't. I mean, I can, but that maybe for that day is not the most important part of my dimension of wellness that I need to nurture the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
It's almost like focusing on the quality, not the quantity.
mhm.
So that, like, maybe you can't necessarily afford the time to do an hour of self-care every day, but how can you ensure that you get at least, like, let's say, like, 4 or 5 hours every week? And those are, like, the best 4 or 5 hours. Like,
Exactly.
you're going to the spa, you're getting your nails done, you're taking a luxurious shower, like, whatever is feasible for you and also within your budget, like, making
Mhm.
sure to have, like, quality self-care. I talk to a lot of people who are students and entrepreneurs, who are moms of 5 and also an entrepreneur, like, lots of different types of people, and I know there's people out there who cannot guarantee themselves an hour alone every day, and
Mhm.
that's okay, but I'm sure
Time
that
is a luxury.
time is a luxury, and I'm sure that you
Valuable
can
is
find
life.
an hour a week.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure you can find an hour a week, but you take that hour and you make it last, right?
Mhm.
Even if that means, like, if you are a busy mom or a busy entrepreneur or anything, even if that means waking up an hour early 1 day a week before the rest of your kids wake up or
Yeah.
before you clock in to work, waking up an hour early just to, like, sit outside, drink your coffee, do whatever you need to do, because a self inventory is so, so important. I feel like it's important to ask ourselves, like, what's my direction? I love how earlier we're talking about, like, reflecting on what people you've met recently have taught you, and, like, I'm a very introspective, reflective person too, and I just think it's very, very important. I wish more people were. I'm
Yeah.
sure they are, but I don't know how
How
often we
long it
really.
takes.
Yeah, it takes a long time, and I also don't know how often we really talk about it, like, "This
Mhm.
is what I reflected on this week."
Yeah.
But this is why I feel like this podcast is important as well, because, like, these reflections are so, so powerful. I'm a different person now than I was yesterday, let alone a year ago or
Oh yeah.
whatever. People who know me from my childhood don't know me now. I'm a
They
different
don't.
person. It comes from reflection, and reflection leads to self awareness, and self awareness leads to taking action. And it's all
Mhm.
compounding, where you might feel like if you really want to make a change in your life, or you feel like you're going in a direction that was passed on to you, but it doesn't suit what you see for yourself, starting with self-awareness and with reflection and with an inventory of what's actually going on and breaking it down as detailed as you can is the best way to help yourself find a footing to take your next step. And every step is one after the other, and you just keep
It's true.
doing that until you are where you want to be.
Wellness is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah, it is. It's about learning to enjoy the journey, and, like, to learn how to love food and learn how to love your skin and learn how to
Mhm.
love taking care of yourself so that you can then take care of others as well. And, like, it's just a cycle. You're also teaching your son how to take care of himself. And I think that's so beautiful. I wanted to ask you one more question before we move on to our final topic of the day.
Sure.
What is Fearless September? What does that mean to you?
Fearless September. Okay. Okay. All right. So I am on a mission since September 1st to make September and onwards, but I'm starting with September, small steps, a fearless September. And fearless September means just doing everything that scares me.
Yeah.
And that is things that scare me where I'm going to Texas by myself. I have nobody that I know in Texas. I literally am going to Texas on Wednesday and booked the hotel on Sunday. Literally just stepping outside of the box and saying like, what's the worst that could happen? Of course, doing so in prayer because I need the covering. But really, like just doing things that scare me. And I've done. I don't want to say I've done so many different things that scare me, but I've done a few things that were a little like, maybe I would have thought of doing that in the back of my head, but I wouldn't have actually done it, or something that I said, or really just being vulnerable. Again, that's just me fully being myself and allowing myself to fully be myself and be fearless. That's what Fearless September means. So there will be a lot more fearlessness that will be happening. And I hope that in my fearless September, it gives me more courage to have a fearless October and a fearless November, a fearless December, and then a fearless 2024. But I find that every time we like push the envelope or just step outside of what is our norm, a habit, like a generational cycle that we're so used to, that great things happen. So I am being
Yeah.
fearless this entire September. And it feels really uncomfortable sometimes. Most of the time, it feels uncomfortable. But that's also a little, it gives me like that jittery, risky feeling. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like getting uncomfortable is ultimately the point because that's how you get to know yourself in these new circumstances.
Mhm.
And being fearless requires stepping out of that comfortable zone.
Space. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much.
My solo trip to Mexico, where I was doing things where, and I mean, there was more outside of the travel, but I was just doing things that were just like, whoa, you did that? Like,
Yeah.
or I did it and I didn't even realize I was doing it so fearlessly, but I just pushed myself to do it because I really was curious, like what would happen if I did this. And it was nothing breaking the law.
I love
but
that.
but I just did those things and I'm like, hey, like it like dawned on me, like imagine if I was just fearless in everything I did. Like as a child, you just enter into things and I guess they don't understand the danger, so they just like go at it full fledged. But what if I just went at it full fledged, not really considering the consequences? And yeah, what's the worst that could happen?
I admire that so
Yeah.
much. I admire that so much. I tend to be an overthinker and a worrier, and I tend to ruminate before I can ever make a decision because what if?
Overthinker.
Yes, ma'am. And it's challenging because you want to be the best, you want to do the best, and you want to like look back at your life and be like, that was a full life. I did so much. I'm the best. You can't do that from just doom scrolling in your bed and not moving. And you have to get
It's like it'll
uncomfy.
come to me.
You have to actually get out there in order to experience this fullness and this fulfillment that life can offer. And it sounds like you really found pieces of your soul that were wanting to come out when you were doing some solo travels.
Yes, I
And
did.
I love that so much. I love that a lot. Now, to transition us a little bit into our final topic of breaking cycles and gratitude. How do we break cycles while honoring where we've come from? I feel we've done a lot of that today. I feel like we've talked a lot about generational cycles without having to throw any of the lovely people who raised us under the bus. But I would love to know your take on that, how we honor where we come from while also breaking these cycles.
That I believe goes into like a reflection moment. So one, you have to be real with yourself, to understand specific cycles and specific behaviors that are a result of those cycles. Like vulnerable moment here. I recently identified that I have like abandonment issues, and I was never
Oh, me
abandoned or
too.
left anywhere. Maybe I got lost in the mall once when I was like 7 years old, but I was found in like 5 minutes, but it felt like it was like half the day. But I recently found out that I have abandonment issues, and then it was really identifying where that stemmed from, and it stemmed from a few different places. Some of them actually didn't even happen in my childhood. Some of them happened in as I was transitioning from being a teenager to an adult. Again, I've always had a lot of responsibility put on me. And I think sometimes I even put that responsibility on myself. And that's why I'm always known in my family as like, Shantae's like super independent. Even like guys I've dated, they're like, you're so independent. I didn't think that I needed to do this. And I'm like, you definitely need to do that. But yeah, just identifying specific things that are cycles, that are quote unquote traumas, things that trigger you or have a result that isn't necessarily somebody that you are today. And once you sort of identify that, value that you went through that experience, because again, most experience that you go through, whether they're good experiences or bad experiences, they're really nurturing you and like building you up to have those bricks that you take into the next dimension of your life or take into the next stage of your life or season of your life. I always say in prayer, like, I thank God for bringing me through those valley moments that I've had. I wouldn't know how to navigate the world that I'm in now. I wouldn't know how to, maybe if somebody says something, and this is with entrepreneurship, where maybe somebody says something that isn't so nice. But it's like, how do I deal with that? Am I going to like blow up at you? Or are we both going to have a shouting battle? I'm not going to do that. I hope they're not going to do that, but I'm not going to do that. And then dealing with things with my son, or dealing with things in relationships or with friendships, just having those building blocks that I learned in past experiences, but not dwelling in the past experience, because you can be completely out of a situation, a circumstance, but your mind is still there. As
Yes.
your body has entered and left, and it's been like 2 or 3 years, and you're still in that environment. Something can happen, and it's like it's like your entire body goes back there. So honoring that you've gone through it, everything that you've learned, but not really having it as like a replay in your mind, where it's like, I need to be on guard because this could happen to me again. But it's like, thank God I got through that, and I'm here
Yeah.
now. So that's one thing that I definitely do to help me to break those generational cycles, but also to, in the moment, again, in the Fearless September, and some of the fearlessness that I've done throughout the years, really just asking questions, because I find, especially now in 2023, there is so many miscommunications that happen.
And like
And that's
micro
because, yeah,
miscommunications too.
small things. It's almost like a gesture somebody did, whatever it was, and then that brings a person back into, I guess, their fight or flight mode, where they were in survival or a past situation that was traumatic, and that new person has no idea that that brought you there. But it's
Yeah.
just like, oh, whatever. And I'm breaking that, and I find that even as I like depart from people, or me and people go separate ways, and friendships end. I've even had like a friendship breakup that happened a few years ago, and this was like a long-term friendship that I
I
had.
went through the same thing, and it is, I will tell you, a friendship breakup hurts way
It's
worse than any
than a
romantic
heartbreak.
breakup.
Yeah.
Like,
It
it
does.
sucks. We are going to talk about that one-on-one later.
We are. But it was like, I don't want to say it was traumatic, but like, I
It
even
can
went to
be.
therapy. I went to therapy after, and this was the first time I went to therapy, and I'm like, this is not making me feel good. Okay. But it was, and the way I perceive it, it was something that was done to me. Maybe
Yeah.
she has a different perspective. Again, we've gone past it. We had a conversation. But
Oh, you
still,
have? I went through a friendship breakup, no conversation since, and we lived together. And it was just
oh,
like
whoa.
ghosted.
Yeah.
So I've been dealing with that, like letting go and forgiveness and like
Forgiveness is a huge aspect of it all. Like, really just taking it off of your heart,
yes,
because that can carry with you. Yeah, those friendship breakups. Woohoo! And then
they're
Snapchat will remind you of memories. And I'm like, Snapchat, please, I'm
cool.
healing.
I love that so much. Yeah. So breaking cycles while also honoring where you've come from. I love that this concept because I also feel like some of our cycles they can be passed down to us not necessarily from our parents, not from our grandparents, but from I think up to like 14 generations we can pass
Wow.
down the same belief systems and the same cycles and like maybe we haven't necessarily defined what a generational cycle is within this episode, but that was a good time. Generational cycles could be a belief system or a habit or just a cycle that you go through and you don't always necessarily know why. You don't always necessarily know who gave it to you, or like the example we gave before where nobody necessarily called you stupid, but now all of a sudden you always grow up saying, oh, I'm so stupid every time you make a mistake.
Yeah.
These are generational cycles. They can be silly and they can be benevolent and they can have no bearing on your success in life too. They can have good generational cycles. We don't need to break all of them. Sometimes a generational cycle is just like a tradition that you do to honor certain holidays and stuff like that, or like things that you do as a family. All of these things can be very positive generational cycles. We like certain generational cycles, but then there's also some that can really hold us back. Major ones being like belief systems around money. Like, for example, some people might believe that they have to work really, really hard in order to make a lot of money. This is not true. There are opportunities on this planet where you can make bank doing almost nothing. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that sometimes it just comes around believing that it's
Can.
possible. And the way that I like to see myself breaking my generational cycles in a way that is honoring where I've come from. I love what you say about thanking the experience that you've had, but it brings kind of like a funny question in my mind about what about the generational cycles that I have and I don't know where they come from because I didn't have an explicit experience within this cycle or this belief system that I have. The way that I like to see it is that there is someone in my lineage, someone who has come before me, who was stuck behind this.
Mm-hmm.
That this was a cycle that kept them small or it kept them held back. It just kept them away from whatever it was that would have made them successful. And I've had the privilege to inherit it and then break through it and move past it as a way to set that past person in my lineage free, to be able to say, we've broken this cycle. You can rest easy, you can let go, and we can move on to a new dimension of our lives. And I think that it's the highest honor to be able to break a generational cycle and let it go with forgiveness and with peace.
Yeah.
And to have gratitude for the experiences that it has taught you. Like, let's say you've had a turbulent childhood, you must have grown up to be very compassionate, very good at reading people, very good at so many things that make you just an excellent person to be around. But it doesn't mean that we have to remain small and we have to remain in circumstances that keep us small. On a side note, here are some examples of breaking and evolving generational cycles that came to me during editing. One example of a cycle could be a familial culture around drinking. Let's say, for example, you have alcoholism in your family and you've never particularly struggled with alcoholism, but you've prohibited it from ever crossing your lips. You also notice that every family holiday dinner, someone cracks out the wine and the liquor. You might feel like, because of a history of addiction in your family, you need to completely cut off any and all access to alcohol to protect yourself and your future children from the same fate. But then you also feel left out of the celebration at holiday dinners. With this one example, I'd like to offer that what if there's an option to abstain in your day to day life and indulge on holidays? This is just one example, and I recognize that addiction is complex and individual. Ultimately, your choices are your choices, and if abstinence feels right, whatever you need to do to nurture yourself is something to strive for. This idea can also be applied to more generational cycles as well, like perhaps your family has taught you all of the tips and tricks for budgeting because you grew up watching your family struggle financially. And you get older and decide that you don't want to struggle financially and you want to do everything different from your parents to get there, which must mean budgeting is poor people behavior. However, even rich people budget to avoid their expenses creeping up when their resources increase. You can evolve to not spend above and beyond your means, but this doesn't mean you lose your savviness from the hood. Another example could be in relationships. Maybe your mom married a hardened man, and you saw how his callousness robbed your mom of her softness. And this must mean your partner must be soft for you to remain soft. However, when you enter the dating scene and interact with soft partners, you notice your own calluses block you from being a supportive partner. When the reality is, perhaps you're not meant to be with an innately soft heart, but rather you're meant to live the legacy that a partner who's a true leader also knows how to be led. These are some examples of many, but let's get back to the episode. Generational cycles is just such an interesting topic to me because it is so complex. It is so taboo. I like to talk about these sort of gray area topics in a way that's respectful and it's full of honor towards who we were yesterday, because who we were yesterday, even if we're better now, does not mean we were worse then.
Yeah.
It's just something that you have to go through in order to be at your highest potential one day.
It had to be me yesterday to be me today.
Exactly. And I feel like just sending them love and forgiveness and peace as well, like yesterday's self, is also just so powerful. Okay, so our last little question here: what types of cycles can we have that impact our lives negatively, and what types of cycles can we have that impact our lives positively? I already gave a couple examples, but can we go a little bit deeper in on that question?
I have generational cycles that are around money. For myself, I grew up in what people would call the hood or an underprivileged neighborhood. And I didn't really realize that I was growing up in that area up until I was in like grade 5 or grade 6. And even then, it didn't really give me like a negative stigma. But as I grew older, I understood where some behavioral patterns that I had were to like react in a certain way, or my behavior around money, where again, I had to work really hard. You have to work really hard to get it. And then even once you do, it's still never ever going to be enough. It's funny because after going through all of that, I became a business coach, a finance coach.
Yeah.
So it's really funny where life takes you. That were some of the generational cycles that I've gone through. And then I do have a few other generational cycles where it's around relationships and like nurturing relationships, where it's like if it doesn't work out, we just cut it off. And I'm in a season of my life, and I don't know how long I've been in this season. I need to do another reflection moment on that. But I've been in a season of my life where if I am going to part ways with somebody, I'm going to part ways with somebody in a very respectable manner,
Hmm.
because I don't want any negative karma, or I don't want any negative repercussions based on that one interaction to hinder where I can go.
Yeah.
Because I definitely see, for me, sky's the limit. But it's
Hmm.
also based on my attitude, my behaviors, my habits, and how I treat other people. It's not really harping on, I guess, how people treat me or how much things happen to me, but it's like, again, like what did I learn from that I can continue on and not harden myself because of that one circumstance or that one situation that I've gone through. Because I still want to remain like sweet Shantae. I still want to remain with a soft heart, an open heart, so kind that I feel that I am. So
Yeah.
that's just a person that I want to maintain for myself. And it's about me not allowing any situation, circumstance, experience, or person to hinder who I can be based on what I've gone through, because there's things that I've gone through in the past where I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is gonna be the end. I'm like heartbroken, or like this is the worst thing that can happen to me, or even things related to like grief, where I'm like, I'm just gonna like seclude myself and I'm gonna isolate myself. But realizing that that's not, and grief is different for everybody, but that's not the best thing that I can do for myself. But yeah, a lot of it for me stemmed around money and behaviors and relationships, whether that's like friendships and companions or like romantic relationships, that I am trying my best within my generation of my family. Me and my cousins and my brother are trying to diminish. Of course, there's hurdles that we're going through because these are long term, as you mentioned, like 14 years, generational curses that or cycles that we're trying to break. We've all came to a collective agreement that it stops at this generation, or it stopped in the past generation. Again, that's even something as simple as my family overall isn't very affectionate, but I myself and my generation of cousins and brothers, we're very affectionate people. So it's almost like two sides of a coin. So
Yeah.
we're always like greeting each other with like hugs and like smooches on the face. Whereas when we were growing up, we didn't really like hug. We didn't say like I love you. I tell my son I love him like 50,000 times a day. Like he's
As
like,
you should.
I know, I love you too. I know. I'm like, don't forget it.
I
Um,
get it, mom.
yeah, but I will continuously smother him with love and affection all the time, and not because I didn't get it, I just didn't get it in that form, but making
Mhm.
sure like I'm touching all the pieces of like affection that you can get. So yeah, you know you're loved, and it's not something that you have to really guess, or think like, oh my gosh, my mom hasn't told me that she loved me like in so long, or my mom hasn't ever said that she loved me, or we've never hugged, or we've never like embraced, because yeah, we just didn't do that. And I met with my grandma 2 weeks ago. I picked her up in my car, and then she was just going around to the driver's side, and she was just gonna get in the car. And I'm like, wait, you didn't even give me a hug. And I gave her like a big warm hug. And she's like, oh, thanks, I needed that. So it's really just so simple. And again, we overthink it, or we just don't want to be like gushy or vulnerable or whatever it is. But just do it. Fearless
Yeah.
September. Just do it.
This is so funny because I feel very similar to you in the sense of growing up, we didn't necessarily do the big feelings in public. We
Mhm.
weren't overly affectionate with the big feelings and everything. And I find that me and my sister, same boat as you and your cousins, we are making them give us hugs and show the feelings that we need to show. And it's like, I feel it's so powerful. Something that I can add as well to the question of how do our cycles impact us either positively or negatively? Sometimes these cycles, they can impact us negatively in certain parts of our lives, but not in every part of our lives. And
Mhm.
we can work on these cycles and work through these cycles without necessarily having to go to the complete opposite side of the coin, that sometimes we can evolve it and change it and not necessarily have to just push it away to be like, every single thing I'm going to do opposite to my parents, because your parents did, I'm sure, break some of their own cycles as well, even if they didn't break all of them. So having compassion for where you've come from, and then also seeing maybe why it came about the way that it did, what was the purpose to protect you, and then asking yourself how we can evolve this to be differently if necessary. And, you know, just having these very real conversations with yourself about why things are the way that they are. I really love how, like, growing up in a household where we didn't necessarily always do the big affection thing, it's taught me how to be a lot more diplomatic in my approach towards things now, because we didn't have the big explosions face to face. If you had big feelings, you had to go to your room, deal with those feelings. We can talk about this properly when you're calm. So now I don't necessarily like to show people my big feelings. And it's something that, for me, I always just want to show up as my best self. I really hate disappointing people, and I hate making mistakes and all of the things. I think we all feel the same way. In that respect, when I am feeling the big feelings, and I'm a very emotional person, I have all of the big feelings, I like to take care of them myself first and try and find a level of regulation, just coherency behind what it is that I'm feeling. How can I put this into words? And then go and meet with the person and have this conversation. And I still like to keep them very diplomatic. That's something that I learned from my family, that at one point in time I was like, well, why can't they just deal with me and my big crying and my big yelling and all of this rage that I feel inside me? If you made me feel rage, you should see this rage.
You need
And
to see it now.
exactly. And I'm going to punish you with my entire rage machine. And
Yes.
we have these things in place of taking space first to then come back so that they don't have to deal with the rage. And that's okay. I don't want to deal with rage either. And if somebody is in my life who is showing me rage too often, then I will probably have a conversation and say, hey, we can talk about your feelings, but we don't have to yell about them. Finding ways to self-regulate is just like major for me. It's also a matter of like finding little ways where I can let people in and be vulnerable, and how I can do that in a way that's safe for both of us.
That's
Because
true.
yeah, it's hard, right? It's a challenge because you don't want to ever make yourself or someone else feel unsafe with your feelings, but you also want to allow them
Feeling
to hear and to experience that with you, because whenever we share our emotions, they become so much lighter. There's balance to everything. I would say, just in terms of generational cycles, like there's two sides to every coin, and the answer probably lies somewhere in the middle. There's probably a third solution somewhere that is a combination of where you came from and where you're going, and allowing yourself space to discover that over time and reflecting all of the things is the best way to just make sure that when you are releasing a cycle, that it is conducive to your overall success.
It's true.
It is. This has been a very big topic to talk about.
It has.
And thank you for sharing with me in this, because I don't know if I would have been able to cover all of this alone. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. I hope I wasn't talking too much.
No, God, no. God, no. I loved it all. I really appreciate our back and forth. I've had many different interviews, and they always turn out very, very different. But before we fully wrap up, do you have anything further you would like to add?
I feel like we covered a lot in the 3 topics, and we almost even bounced back and forth, which, I mean, it all flows together. But really, it's all just a journey. You will never have all the answers. But as it says in the Bible, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. So just continuously be a curious seeker. Identify things within yourself. Do a lot of reflection. I encourage people to do reflection. If we all did reflection, if we all just really tried to nurture our emotional selves, spiritual selves, mental and physical selves, then we just show up as yourself, and the worst answer you can ever get is no, or I don't agree. And you don't want anyone to just always agree with you anyways, because that's boring. So,
It is.
so really just be yourself. Truly look deep into yourself. Be vulnerable. Just be yourself. The raw, candid version, the goods and the bads. Just be yourself. Honestly.
I love that so much. Oh man, this was such a great topic. I agree. We had a lot of flow within our topics. So thank you so much for being a great co-host of this episode. I feel like we had a lot of really great information. Before I send you off, where can your audience keep in touch with you?
You can keep in touch with me on my social media. So there are two. If you want to connect through Agape, we are on Instagram at Agape Canada, AGAPE Canada. And then through Cobella Financial, which is our accounting firm, you can connect at Cobella Financial on Instagram. Just send me a DM on any of the platforms, whichever. If you want to talk, if you want to be vulnerable, you want to dig deep. I don't charge for those sessions. I'm not a therapist or anything, but I do love to have me some great conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love that. And I'm going to take you up on that because I have more to say after this
Yes.
call.
You know you're welcomed in my DMs at all points, Hannah.
Thank you, my love.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you
I
so
love
much. Just as I was too excited to do a proper introduction to this episode, I forgot to do a conclusion as well. Thank you so much for being here with us. Today we discussed generational cycles and how they come up in work, money, relationships, and more. We discuss how generational cycles show up as you become a parent and you're forced to face your own inner child as an extension of yourself with your own child. We've discussed the inner child as well as the inner parent, and we've also discussed seasons and the consequences of ignoring your winter. We've discussed the reality of breaking your generational cycles. It doesn't mean you'll be so extremely removed from where you've come from, but rather finding a new place within you to honor where you've come from and to also live your truth simultaneously. Something I'll be taking away from this episode is even if you don't feel your parents have broken all of their cycles, they definitely have broken some of them. It's important to honor your parents and be grateful for where you've come from. It's our job to be a transitional steward for our youth and our elders as we move collectively to new seasons of life. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for being here with me, and if you enjoyed today's topic, now is a great moment to subscribe. If you have any feedback about today's topic, please reach out to my social channels. I help creative entrepreneurs market their creations in a way that feels authentic. I have a self-study marketing program that covers basic and advanced marketing concepts with 9 modules and activity sheets. I also sell content creation templates to help you manage your social media with unlimited content creation ideas. And I also offer one-on-one marketing consulting services. Check out my socials and my website to learn more. If you're interested in working with me, please reach out via email. So that's social media if you're reaching out for my podcast, and email if you're reaching out for business. All relevant contact links are in the description, and thanks again for listening. Cheers for now. That was pretty good.